Have you ever wondered what an unknown was? If you have, then you're not alone. It turns out people have been searching for unknowns for thousands of years. Not just in art and philosophy, but in mathematics as well. In fact, wouldn't it be great if we could systematically find an unknown? And this is where algebra comes in. The word algebra comes from the Arabic word algebra, which means to restore, but the origins of its name are not really important. The value of algebra is not necessarily in its name, but what it does. Algebra is a branch of mathematics that studies the relationships between unknowns and the methods for finding them. How is this useful? It turns out that unknown quantities are of interest to many scientists and engineers, and often entire experiments and painstaking measurements can be avoided using certain algebraic techniques. But let's get back to algebra. If unknown quantities are of such great importance, then wouldn't there be some standard way of representing an unknown? In algebra, unknowns are represented by literal numbers such as x, y, and z. While these are just a few examples of some common literal numbers, it's important to note that any symbol can be used to represent an unknown. Representations of unknowns can include shapes such as squares, Greek letters such as delta, and even other letters from the English alphabet such as R, Q, and so on. But x and y are the most common. In applications, the values of unknowns can vary depending on how they're defined. For this reason, literal numbers are often called variables. Variables represent unknowns whose value can change depending on how they're defined. Then what about values that do not change? In algebra, these are called constants. Constants represent values that do not change. They often appear next to variables. Here are just a few examples of some common constants. Constants can also be fractions, decimals, and so on. When constants and variables are put together, they form mathematical phrases called expressions. Equations are expressions set equal to each other. But it's mostly because they have an equal sign. And that is a brief introduction to algebra. Make sure to watch my next video where I show you when a variable is solved. See you next time!